Yeah, I mean, like you said, I've been around this tournament for a good portion of my career. Got to play in a final, didn't win. So, the way I've always thought about the Open Cup is it's a great opportunity to win a trophy. Especially with the format now, 6 games I believe, and you're in a final, or 6 games and you win a trophy. So, for us, especially for a team that's hungry to bring the first trophy to this franchise, to this state even. It's a big opportunity and one that we're taking really seriously.
Thanks, Alex. We'll start on this side.
Just talking about your offense with Jacob coming back, you guys have leaned hard on Hani and Sam. You played with Jacob a long time. How much more depth, how much more powerful can he make that unit getting him back?
Yeah, I mean, for sure, getting him back is a huge boost to our team. He's a kind of a different profile to probably most of our wingers, just because of his speed, his ability to run behind. So yeah, always getting a guy like that back who's has experience at the international level is going to be helpful. And I think giving the coach as many weapons and creating more competition with the group is always going to be a good thing for everybody.
And every game is big, every game is fun, but talk about the thrill of a knockout game and just how different that is.
Yeah, I mean, knockout games are they have that extra edge. Knowing that someone's going to walk away victorious, it's not going to end a draw. If it's 90 minutes, it's going to go to 120. After 120, you're going to go to penalties. So just knowing that night there's going to be one team that moves on and one team that's out of the competition, it just gives it that extra edge. And then it also, when the Open Cup does this often, which it'll feel like you just played the same team over and over again. In DC, it just feels like we're playing them every week now, and I think that adds a second dimension to the game as well. Two teams that start to really understand what the other opponent feels like playing against, the things they're trying to do, weaknesses and strengths, and I think that that can also add a dynamic to the game that could be interesting to watch.
Right. What's the confidence level like for the team now? I mean, you lost, you played with 10 men last game, and you guys didn't seem to waver.
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's a team with a lot of belief and a team that prides itself on, when things aren't going our way, it's the next question is how do we respond, and I think that because of that shift in focus to ourselves, it's less about the circumstances and it's more about, ways that we can make a situation better. And I think that, the example last weekend was a great one about going down a man and how do we respond to that? How do we make it better? It's not you're not always going to win those games, but it just shows where we are as a group and the belief that we have, and also the way that our anchors are able to carry us through situations that are unideal.
Alex, how important is this streak that you have going on? It's 14 games since you last lost. Do you talk about it with the other players, and how important is it to have a tangible thing to hold on to?
I don't think it's necessarily. I mean, it's important to be winning more than you lose. It's important to be losing as little as possible. So in that way, it is important, right? You're climbing the table. It shows that the things that the things that you're putting in are having a good output as well. The input is matching the output, or the outputs are matching the input. But I think that in terms of us talking to each other, or making that the output, the results aren't what makes us know that what we're doing is on the right track. It's not. It's more about the feeling inside, the way that we feel ourselves improving, the way that we feel ourselves adapting to different situations. So no, I mean, I think the only thing we said about the streak was we had a bunch of games in May, and we were 2 or 3 games in and we hadn't lost yet, and I forgot what month we were in, and I said, we're undefeated in June still. And so now every month I say the next month we're still undefeated. So it's July, we're still undefeated in August. So I think that's, that shows how those things aren't matter. We could lose the next game and it doesn't mean anything in terms of what we've done to get to this point. It's building on its own, and I think having that, understanding that if we lose, how we respond the next game is going to be all right. So Seattle was our last loss, and you saw how that was a rough game. And, that didn't affect our next games, and then these wins also don't affect us. We're not taking our foot off the pedal. So.
And then we've heard of goalkeeper unions or center back pairings. Do you and the other wingers, Johnny, Ahmed, Jacob, have some sort of a group that you share information, maybe try to learn from each other?
Not really. I mean, I think I think attacking players, it's a little different probably than that, just because we get rotated more. But obviously in your positional group, you go through a lot of the same types of things, and you're aware of what your role is going to be going into each game. So we definitely share that. And then with Johnny specifically going through his first professional red card, we're all there for him and telling him he's still a good guy after all, even though that temper is serious. But no, yes, I think we're as close to each other as we are the rest of the group.
Alex, maybe this is looking ahead a slight bit, but you had the Leagues Cup run in 2023, but for the last 3 seasons you've kind of struggled in July and August in MLS play. I guess how do you avoid that this season? I guess what do you feel is different about this year's team that could allow you to do that?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I guess just continuing to trust the depth of the group. In these hot months, it can really wear and tear on you, so you need to count on the whole team. And I think, again, not getting too caught up in stats like that. Just because the last 2 years have been one way, you could say, oh, we struggled last year, why weren't we struggling this year? It's just those types of the past doesn't affect necessarily the present, and it definitely doesn't affect the future. So I think that not worrying about things like that, continuing to push ourselves, continuing to find an edge, and just knowing that these summer months, these dog days of summer really do matter, because come the end of the season, there's a lot of points that are up for grabs in the summer. So I think just focusing on that and realizing that there's a lot to gain, and not worrying about losing, not worrying about things that have happened in the past.
I guess what's been your perspective on just the connection of Hani and Sam up top? I guess what do you feel looks different about that pairing maybe this season? If anything.
I don't know. I guess that's more of a question for those guys. I think just they're playing together more. They're understanding each other a little bit more, each other's tendencies, each other's the things the ways that they're able to be productive. So hopefully that's always going to pay dividends. They're both guys that I believe in and the whole group believes in a lot. I've seen Hani for a long time doing unbelievable things, and Sam is completely capable of the same. So having those guys on the team is always gonna be a productive and positive thing.
Yeah, just looking back at the last 2 games that you played against DC, obviously the draw here and then getting a win at their place, but it felt like maybe they were able to close things down a little bit more than other teams have against you. Just looking at those 2 games, what do you think they did well to maybe limit some of the chances, and how are you kind of hoping to counter that tomorrow?
Yeah, I mean, I think that they, especially when they played here, it'll be interesting to see, because when they played at home, it was a little bit different. But when they played here, it was really, really compact. A lot of players behind the ball, wasting time from a really, really, really early point. So, just slowing the game down in those ways. The goalkeeper was really taking a lot of time. Every time they were fouled, it was taking a long time. Getting the ball in was taking a long time. And then, like I said, it felt like 11 players in their own, last 40 yards or so. But at their home, it was a little bit different. At both games, they were missing Benteke, missing some guys. So getting those guys back is going to change things. But yeah, I think they keep it really compact. They play with a back 5, so they have a lot of numbers back there. And it's not easy to necessarily to break them down, but it's good practice for us. It's good training for us, and they could come out and do something completely different. So as much as you want to rely on the experience you have against them, you have to be ready for them to make tweaks. And like I said, they have different players coming into the group could change the dynamic.
And then you've kind of earned a reputation for just working really hard and covering a lot of ground. In the past, it feels like with this Nashville team, you were doing a lot of that work kind of off the ball. And this year, you guys have been able to kind of close out games with possession. And just how important has that been to give yourself and other guys maybe a bit of a rest and just kind of slow things down and hold on to the ball for longer stretches?
Yeah, I mean, I think exactly, like, it's always going to be better to close the game out with the ball, because you're just more comfortable. It puts less stress on you, and I think against the ball, it just adds stress, and when that piles on top of itself, it can ultimately you can bend and then break. I think being a more savvy team and being a team that's more put a real emphasis on the way that we build up and the way that we maintain and keep possession has allowed us to feel a little bit less pressure sometimes in those late stages of the game. So yeah, I think as much as we can continue to beat teams and finish games out with the ball, that's going to be obviously a good thing.
We're gonna have Charlie on Zoom.
Hey Alex, this is Charlie Bone from MLSsoccer.com. So I've been writing about Sam Sturridge this week, and I wanted to see if I could pick your brain a little bit. You played with some pretty good strikers over your career. I just wonder how you compare him, what he's bringing to the table for the group, and what he's like as a person as well, and maybe what's behind this incredible run of form that he's on.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's from a physical profile, he's definitely interesting. He's quick, but he's also pretty tall. So he's got kind of got that hybrid where he can do some hold up. He's pretty strong. He can do some hold up, but he can also stretch behind. A lot of guys struggle having both of those things, so he can do that. He's insanely high engine. Actually, I don't think that people realize how much ground he can cover and how much his work rate doesn't really dip throughout the game, and I think it's very impressive. And then I think from a mentality standpoint, he's a guy who's come from overseas and has been on a lot of different clubs over there. You got to ask this guy how many different clubs he's played for. We do like a thing in preseason where we talk about our journey, and he spent the first 5 minutes just listing clubs that he's been at. And I think that it's made him a little bit. It's made him strong mentally. Probably he's come into a lot of different groups, and it's probably made him strong. But also he hasn't had much consistency in one place maybe for extended periods of time. This is probably you'd have to check, but I think this is probably maybe the longest he's been in one place since he's been a pro. I'm not sure, but it feels like it. And you can see that he's becoming more comfortable and more steady within the group, and I think that that's probably where you're seeing a lot of the dividends. He's had time to really get comfortable here and to figure it out, and I think we saw right away with his introduction the way he injected some goal scoring and some threat into the team. But I think now that he's been here longer, it's more of a consistent threat, which is really cool to see.